Season 18 is around the corner, and with the release of Season 18, we will be getting a returning Destiny 1 raid. In today's video, I compiled what are, in my opinion, the best weapons to take with you into the Day 1 raid. It is worth noting that the weapons I chose for today's video made the list because they are great for ad clear and or boss damage, so they will be valuable to have. I'm sure I will end up missing some, so let me know which weapons I missed in the comments below. Let's hop right into the video. We're going to start off with legendary weapons that reside in the primary slot, and to kick the list off, I wanted to highlight the ignition code and kinetic blinding grenade launchers in general. I'm pretty sure you know why this is on the list, but I'm still going to go into detail about this entry. Blinding grenade launchers are typically very strong in most of, if not all in-game activities, because it allows you to blind most enemies for 5 seconds, which can help you get out of tight situations, and the radius of the grenade is pretty large, making it easy to blind a large group of enemies. There are 3 primary grenade launchers in the game that I'd recommend going for, those being Ignition Code, Pardon Our Dust, and the Lingering Dread. I'd recommend you try to get your hands on either an Ignition Code for the busted combo of blinding nades and slide shot to spam the grenades, or get a Lingering Dread with blinding nades, auto-loading holster, and chill clip to not only blind your enemies, but to also freeze some of them. I definitely recommend getting your hands on a blinding nade grenade launcher if you plan on taking the raid on day 1. The next suggestion I have is Riptide. The Riptide is a legendary fusion rifle that drops at the end of Crucible matches. I'm highlighting this weapon since it has access to Chill Clip, which, as I mentioned when talking about the Lingering Dread, could be a great utility perk to have during day 1. I'm also choosing to recommend this weapon because it's very common to come across one, meaning you'll probably get a Chill Clip roll fast. If you don't want to play Crucible for the Riptide, which I wouldn't really blame you for, then I'd suggest getting a Deliverance, whether it's crafted or not, as it can also roll with Chill Clip. The Deliverance drops from the Valve Disciple raid at encounters 1 and 3, so regardless of which one you choose, I think it's worth getting one of these two. Next up, I want to talk about the Succession. The Succession is arguably one of the best PvE snipers in the game, thanks to the DPS this weapon can output. It drops from the second encounter in the Deepstone Crypt raid, which just so happens to be one of the easiest encounters to farm during the Rotator week. Regarding the best role to go for on this weapon, I think it's important to get Reconstruction and Vorpal weapon on the sniper rifle, with preferably a magazine perk like Extended Mag or Tactical Mag for additional shot. If you're unable to farm the Succession or just don't have one in general, then the Silicon Neuroma will be a great substitute as it comes with great perks like Triple Tap in Column 3 and Focus Fury, Frenzy, and Firing Line in Column 4. Personally, I'd highly recommend Triple Tap and Firing Line to make this weapon as strong as can be. Also, this weapon will be the Nightfall weapon next week, so be sure to get one if you need one. Next up, I want to recommend the Heritage Shotgun, which also drops from the Deepstone Crypt raid from Encounter 2. While this is a slug shotgun and slug shotguns have been receiving nerfs as of late, they have still proven to be great DPS options and just a great weapon option overall. Regarding the role I would go for on this weapon, I'd suggest going for Reconstruction and Recombination, as this role will make a powerhouse of a shotgun. If you're unable to get your hands on this weapon, then don't worry because I have yet another substitute, in the Fortissimo 11 shotgun. The shotgun drops at the end of Vanguard Ops completions and from Vanguard engrams from Zavala at the tower. Regarding the role to go for on this weapon, I'd suggest 4 times the Charm in Column 3 and Vorpal weapon in Column 4 for a great DPS shotgun. Try to have at least one of these weapons on standby for day 1. I've been mostly talking about special weapons that reside in the primary slot, so let's highlight a great SMG in the primary slot, Submission. Submission drops from the Valve the Disciple raid, more specifically the first 3 encounters, and also comes with some great perk combinations, with the most popular roles being either Overflow, Subsistence, or Perpetual Motion in Column 3 and Frenzy in Column 4. If you're not able to get your hands on a submission, then I'd highly recommend one of the following SMGs: Forensic Nightmare, Extraordinary Rendition, or Escape Velocity. Overall, I'd recommend getting a primary SMG for the race. We've covered a few legendary primary weapons, so let's dive into a few exotic weapons, starting with the Witherhoard, and I'm gonna be honest, this is probably the best all-around grenade launcher in Destiny 2 right now. This weapon does great with ad clear and can be a great damage chipping weapon when you stick an enemy with a grenade. This weapon comes from the exotic kiosk in the tower and is more than worth the pickup. I'd also recommend getting its catalyst because it will give the Witherhoard intrinsic autoloading holster, but also an additional 37 handling to bump the handling stat up to 100. Overall, a great weapon and worth the pickup. The next exotic I want to mention is the Izanagi's Burden. While this sniper rifle may not be as popular this season as it was last season, this weapon is still a great choice, especially for raiding. The exotic perk of this weapon will allow you to combine the 4 shots in your magazine into one powerful shot, causing the sniper to have great damage against any enemy you encounter in the raid and is well worth the pickup. Similarly to Witherhoard, you can grab this weapon from the exotic kiosk in the tower if you have not gotten it. The Catalyst is also worth the pickup, but it is not as important as the Witherhoard Catalyst in my opinion, as it only grants no distractions. All in all, a great weapon to have for day 1. The final weapon I wanted to talk about for the primary slot is the Outbreak Perfected. This one might be an unexpected pick, but hopefully not, because this weapon is unironically a good choice for day 1. Even though you'll want to run other weapons that do more DPS than this weapon, you can have Outbreak as a backup DPS option in case you run out of ammo during a boss fight. This weapon's exotic perk spawns nanites on enemies after hitting consecutive shots rapidly, and those nanites do more damage based on how many have spawned. This weapon is honestly a great option for day 1, and even though I'll be starting with Izanagi's or Witherhoard for a fight, I'll definitely be switching to this if I need another solid damage dealer. Also, you'll definitely want to get this weapon's catalyst as it allows the nanites to do even more damage, making it an even better weapon for DPS. The catalyst drops at the end of strikes, so go farm strikes until you get the catalyst. We're now moving on to the secondary slot, and I wanted to start off by talking about the CALUS Mini-Tool. I spoke about the CALUS Mini-Tool in my best craftable weapons in Season of the Haunted video I uploaded last week, so I'll leave a link to that in the description below if you want to know what roles to go for. As for why this weapon is on this list, it's a 900 RPM SMG with phenomenal ad clear capabilities and amazing perks with it. I'd highly recommend getting this SMG before the raid, because I'm pretty sure it's going to be amazing for when the raid drops. If you want another SMG that is great for ad clear, then the Funweb or the Ikilos SMG will act as great substitutes, thanks to their strong perk pools and the Ikilos SMG's ability to generate Warm Mind cells. We're now going to transition into special weapons in the secondary slot, and the first weapon we're going to highlight is the Forbearance. This is a weapon that has been a hot topic ever since it was first introduced back in March with the release of the Vow of the Disciple raid, and for good reason. This weapon is insane for ad clear thanks to the weapon's frame being a wave frame grenade launcher. Furthermore, this weapon can roll with chain reaction, which will make a beast for ad clear. Pairing chain reaction with Ambitious Assassin will make this even stronger and will make ad clearing light work. Now, if you're not able to participate in the Vow of the Disciple raid, then there is another great option you can get your hands on, and that weapon is the Salvager Salvo, which comes from the exotic kiosk in the tower and also has the Ambitious Assassin chain reaction combination, so there's a substitute if you need one. I mentioned a slug shotgun earlier in this list with Heritage, but let's talk about the best in-slot slug shotgun for your secondary first in last out. First in last out, or Philo for short, is a slug shotgun that commonly got paired with the Heritage during the double slug shotgun meta that reigned supreme back in season 12 to 14. However, I still think this shotgun is worth mentioning because slug shotguns have stayed relevant even after the double slug shotgun meta came to an end. While there are other slug shotguns in the secondary slot, I wanted to highlight this shotgun in particular because it has amazing perks for a slug shotgun, with the fan favorite being auto-loading holster and vorpal weapon. The main downside for this weapon is that it is very difficult to get, as it only drops from the Dares of Eternity now, and during a specific week. If you wanted to go out and get a Philo, you'd have to wait until the week of Season 18's launch to farm one, making it rough to get. Regardless, this is a phenomenal weapon to have for day 1. I want to transition into secondary exotic weapons now, and start by talking about one of the best ad clear weapons in the game, Trinity Ghoul. Trinity Ghoul was a weapon I mentioned back in my best weapons to get for ARC 3.0 video, and this weapon still proves to be a beast even without the synergy we may see from ARC 3.0. Trinity Ghoul's exotic perk makes it so that your next arrow will chain lightning between enemies if you get a kill with an arrow, and with a catalyst, the exotic perk will proc off of any ARC kill, which is amazing. Highly recommend grabbing this and its catalyst before Season 18. The final weapon I want to mention in this slot is of course the Divinity. Any surprises here? Hopefully not. When the Divinity was first introduced back with Shadowkeep in 2019, this weapon became a fan favorite quickly for boss fights thanks to the exotic perk, granting a debuff to enemies when the target takes sustained damage from Divinity. In case you were curious, Divinity grants a 30% damage increase, which is insane for any boss fight. Highly recommend trying to get this weapon before the day 1 race. We finally managed to reach the heavy slot, so we're going to go through this part of the video fast. The first weapon I want to mention for this part of the list is, well, kind of a cheap move to make, but I wanted to recommend linear fusion rifles. Yeah, I know, grouping linears into one spot is somewhat cheating, but there are too many linear fusion rifles that are great in this current meta, and I feel like I need to talk about all of them. To start off, I wanted to recommend the Cataclysmic, which drops from the Vow of the Disciple raid, and more specifically the first and second encounters. The reason I wanted to recommend this weapon is mainly for one perk, which I feel is the best perk in this column without a doubt. That perk is Bait and Switch, which grants this weapon a 35% bonus damage for 10 seconds after tagging an enemy with one shot from each weapon you have. The perk may seem a bit demanding, but the outcome is amazing and most certainly worth it. The second linear I wanted to recommend is Storm Chaser, which drops from the second and third encounters in the Duality dungeon, and even though this weapon caught a slight nerf thanks to the fix to the faster fire rate bug this weapon benefited from, it is still a top tier weapon for boss damage. The best role to go for in my opinion would be either Rapid Hit, Clown Cartridge, or Auto-Loading Holster, and Firing Line. This combination of perks will make this weapon a force to be reckoned with regarding boss damage. The last one I'll recommend is more so a substitute for the previous two, and that weapon is the Reed's Regret, which comes from Trials of Osiris. It rolls with triple tap and firing line and has the Vice Stinger origin trait, which makes this weapon really good. Highly recommend getting whichever weapon you can get. The next weapon is the Palmyra-B, and I'm mainly recommending this rocket since it has access to Enhanced Auto-Loading Holster, which is one of the best enhanced perks in the game, and even though it is an adaptive frame rocket launcher, it still deals a lot of damage, even after its nerfs, so I'd recommend getting one. It's one of the first weapons you'll get the ability to craft, so I highly recommend crafting one. If you can't craft one, I'd recommend using the Hothead, as it also has amazing rolls and was also farmable last week, but is no longer obtainable. If you want to know what rolls to go for on the Hothead, I'll be sure to leave my video in the description below. We finally made it to the exotic heavy weapons for this list, in which we have a few. Starting with the first one, we have the Gjallarhorn, which I hope it goes without saying as to why it's recommended. It's amazing since it provides Wolfpack rounds to your teammates and is just a great damage dealer overall. It comes from a quest that is given to you through the 30th anniversary event, so please go get it if you haven't yet. The next weapon I want to recommend is the Xenophage. The Xenophage is a weapon that seems to make its way onto great damage dealers pretty commonly, and it's a weapon I'd highly recommend. You get it through a quest you can obtain from the moon, so you can find a guide pretty easily for it on YouTube, so please get it if you don't have one yet. The next weapon I'm going to recommend is Tractor Cannon. This weapon is more so a weapon to have for safety, as it may not be one of the best weapons for day one, but it's still a great one to get your hands on regardless, and it works well for boss damage. You can obtain this weapon from exotic engrams, and by the time this video goes live, Xur should be back for the weekend. So if you don't have this weapon yet, then stop by Xur for a chance of this weapon being on sale. The final weapon I want to mention on this list is none other than the Sleeper Simulant. The Sleeper Simulant is a great weapon for damage if your heavy weapon arsenal is rather limited. You can pick it up from the exotic kiosk in the tower, which I'd highly recommend you do. I'd also recommend getting its catalyst, which you can get from strikes. Overall, a solid pickup for the day one race. Ladies and gentlemen, that will wrap it up for this long list of weapons to have going into Season 18's Day 1 raid race. All in all, I mentioned more than 20 weapons to have ready for the Day 1 race, which includes substitutes. It's worth noting that you probably don't need every single weapon on this list, but having a large majority of these weapons will help your chances of getting a Day 1 clear. I'm also aware that I probably forgot some weapons, so be sure to let me know in the comments below which weapons I may or may not have missed. If you guys found this video useful, please consider dropping a like and subscribing for more Destiny content. I will be slowing the uploads down next week since the season is coming to an end, so expect 3 uploads rather than 5 next week. However, I have begun to stream over at Twitch, and at the time of this video's upload, I am currently streaming right now, so feel free to stop by and say hi if you want to, and drop a follow if you want to stay up to date with my streams. Finally, follow me on my other social media platforms, all linked in the description below so you can keep up with me, as I do post a lot over on those pages. With that being said, I'm SniperKH, and I'm out. Good luck with gaming.